Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Couch Scouts podcast. It is good to be back after a couple weeks off. Congratulations to Matt Jackson on the birth of his baby girl. So I was out of town for about a month on a mission trip, and Jackson had a baby. So we took a couple weeks off, but I'm back. We're back, ready to get into it. Rupert, how you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Happy to be back. My son had been wondering when I'm going to get back to filming videos because he got so used to my Tuesday night routine. So yeah, happy to be back and ready to get into some Devy prospects.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be shifting a little towards the Devy side of things, like Rupert alluded to there. It's normal for Devy to kind of get put on the back burner during rookie season, but we have always covered Devy content as part of what we do on this channel, and so excited to kind of get back into that tonight. We're each going to be sharing one player at each position that we think you should be keeping an eye on heading into this season. And maybe we're going to list them because we think they're breakout candidates, maybe because they have hype, but we've got questions. And so there's something we want to keep an eye on to see if they're going to answer these questions that we have about them as players, or, maybe we're just excited to watch them play. So we're going to get into it. But before we get into players to watch, I wanted to shout out our Discord. So if you've been listening for a while, you've heard us talk about the Discord, and honestly, you should be in there already because it's awesome. And we've told you every single week, get in there. But if you're new, check it out. We've got a free Discord. The link will be in the description. There's a bunch of cool guys in there every day talking Dynasty, Devy, trades, posting, oh, I'm on the clock. Who should I take? All kinds of stuff. It's a really fun group of guys. So definitely get in there and join us. It's totally free. And then the other thing I'll hit on just real quick is our rookie guide. I know most people are probably done with rookie drafts at this point, but maybe you're not and you're looking for a good resource. We put together a 70 plus page PDF covering over 60 prospects, strengths, weaknesses, trait by trait, where we would draft them, where we'd rank them, all that kind of stuff. You can pick it up for $10. That link will be in the description too. So with that out of the way, let's get in. Let's talk a little bit of Devy. And we're going to go position by position here. And Rupert and I will each have one guy at each position that we think you should be keeping an eye on, and we'll explain why. So let's start with the quarterback position. And Rupert, who did you put as your quarterback to keep an eye on?
I put Miller Moss at USD. So he's the guy that's been, kind of waiting his turn behind Caleb Williams, who just went number one overall, one of the best prospects we've seen. And he's just been patiently waiting. And one of the things I look for with quarterbacks in particular is they need to have good coaching in college to really be able to, hit the ground running at the NFL level. And he has that with Lincoln Riley, right? And when he has gotten his turn, he really showed out. He threw for 6 touchdowns in the Holiday Bowl when he got his opportunity. And, man, he was just throwing dimes all over the field, rolling out, throwing back across his body, like deep down the field to the other hash. Really good ball placement and touch on the ball, throwing it to where like his guys could only get it. So he's just a guy that kind of popped off to me as, someone to really watch this year and see if he can make that jump and really rise up the ranks this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Malachi Nelson was the 5-star prospect that most people, a lot of people had as the number one quarterback in last year's class coming in as freshmen. Excuse me. And he was thought to be, presumed to be Caleb Williams' backup and heir apparent to take over. But Miller Moss beat him out for that job. The 5-star ended up having to transfer. And seems like it's Miller Moss's job heading into this year. So definitely an interesting one to keep an eye on for sure. And 6 touchdowns in a bowl game is nothing to sneeze at. He's got great weapons to throw to with Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson and Mekhi Lemon, a lot of these guys. So definitely will be interesting to watch there. For me, I put Jackson Arnold, another guy who showed out in the bowl game. And really the 2026 quarterback class in general, I'm interested to keep my eye on because most of them sat on the bench last year and waited their turn. And so Jackson is kind of the main one I wanted to highlight because he's a dual threat. He's got mobility, but he absolutely slung it in their bowl game, had a rocket arm. There were a few turnovers. I think he had maybe 3 interceptions and a fumble in that game, but he also threw for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And it was a true freshman starting in his first game against a ranked opponent. And some of it, it's like he made the right read. He was just a second late, and it led to an interception. So I think there are things that he can learn from, but he definitely showed a lot of raw talent. I'm excited to watch him as a full-time starter at Oklahoma this year. I mean, he'll be playing in a big conference in ranked matchups pretty regularly on national TV. So he's definitely going to have a chance to show out. And from what I saw in the bowl game last year, I think he's got a lot of NFL potential. He's definitely got the traits for sure. So yeah, a couple of quarterbacks to keep your eye on: Jackson Arnold and Miller Moss. Another kind of honorable mention I'll throw out there. I mentioned the 2026 class, Nico Iamaleava. I hope I said that right. At Tennessee, he was another 5-star that played pretty well in the bowl game and should be the full-time starter this year. So he's another name for sure that you want to keep an eye on. So let's get into the running back position. Rupert, who did you shout out as a running back to keep your eye on this year?
I went Ollie Gordon, who's the guy who we just drafted on a team we co-own, where you're helping me get my feet wet into the Devy realm. And I watched some of his tape because it's on Dynasty Nerds film room. And he looks electric. He's a big guy, really tall, runs a little upright, but he's 6'2", 216 pounds, really stout, but he just has incredible elusiveness, dead leg, jump cuts. He looks really electric with the ball in his hands, can string moves together, make us, miss multiple times on one run. And he's got pretty good burst and acceleration to get through the hole. So he was a guy, like, once we started watching a couple guys to determine who we were going to draft, he just really stood out. And I'm really excited to see how he plays this year. I saw a comp of Melvin Gordon for him, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, I see that. Yeah, I can. So that's kind of is the ceiling or kind of range of player I feel like he could be, and I'm excited to see what he does this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 1,700 yards rushing this past season with 21 rushing touchdowns is insane production. And he caught almost 40 passes, 39 receptions, 330 yards, and a touchdown. So he showed the ability to catch passes as well. So, I mean, when you got a guy that's a bigger player, but has good lateral agility for his size and can catch passes, that's definitely somebody to keep your eye on. So we'll see. He won the award for the nation's best running back. So he's not exactly an under the radar name, but certainly if he can repeat or even build off of what he did last year, he's going to be a very, very prominent name in next year's 2025 running back class. So for me, I went with a little bit more of an under the radar guy. Devy people will probably have heard of him, Jaden Blue at Texas. So he was a guy that is a little bit, I think he's more of maybe a post hype sleeper. So when he came in as a recruit into college, he was very highly touted. I think he was considered kind of the number 2 player at his position in the class, and 4-star guy coming into Texas. But of course, he had to wait his turn. His freshman year, it's Bijan, it's Roshan, all those guys. And then last year, I think this was where people kind of left him for dead in the Devy community and said, well, now that those guys are gone, if he still can't win the job, then why should I care? And CJ Baxter is a really good player. He was the number 1 running back in his class. So they kind of recruited over him a little bit. And then obviously Jonathan Brooks had his big breakout season. And so, but when Brooks, this is what excites me about Jaden Blue. When Brooks went down with his ACL injury, it was a timeshare the rest of the year between Blue and Baxter. And Baxter was kind of the banger bruiser. And Blue was like kind of the change of pace guy in space. He's only 191 pounds, listed 191 pounds at Texas, which is not huge for a running back. But man, he is absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. Like complete difference maker in terms of just his juice. a lot of times you watch a guy playing in college and you're like, yeah, he's kind of fast for college, but he's not going to be able to get away from anybody at the NFL level. Blue, it's like when he has the ball in his hands, he's got a gear that other people don't have. He can catch passes. He's got great change of direction ability. So I don't know that he's going to be a high volume guy, but every time he gets the ball in his hands, he's gonna be a threat to make a big play. And I definitely see some NFL traits with him. So he's a guy that I've got my eye on this year. Again, Brooks is out of the way. So coming into this year, the expectation is it's a timeshare between Brooks, or not Brooks, between Baxter and Blue. And I think when those two kind of had the 1-2 punch at the end of last year, Blue looked really good in that role. So I think he can have a big season.
Yeah, he looks
Continuing
like
on. Yeah, go ahead.
he looks like HN Light, doesn't he? With
Yeah, a
that
little
the
bit.
juice he has.
Yeah, I mean, HN obviously, like, he did carry that bell cow role in college and had really elite production, which Blue hasn't done yet. But definitely, I could see the similarities in terms of the play style. So Mike from Dynasty Dog says, "Don't you break my heart with the Nelson convos." Malachi Nelson was a lot of people. He broke a lot of people's hearts because he not only did he have to transfer out of USC, he transferred, I believe, to Boise State, which felt like a pretty big step down. It didn't feel like a lot of the major schools were recruiting him in the transfer portal. So kind of interesting. Didn't seem like Lincoln Riley really wanted to bet his job on Malachi Nelson after seeing a year of him in practice. So um, let's move along. But before we get into our last two positions, I want to take a break to spotlight the Dynasty Nerds film room. You mentioned it when you were talking about Ollie Gordon. We have all 22, and you know, up to this point, we always focus on draft specific years. So we've got a ton of the 2024 class, tons and tons of film. If you're still wanting to get in there and study rookies, it's a great opportunity. But as this new college season starts, we're going to be grinding heavy on this 2025 class, and we're going to be uploading as soon as the season starts. We're going to be cutting up games, uploading them. And so as the season goes along, you're going to be able to watch more and more and more of these 2025 guys that we're talking about the show today. So definitely get in there, get in the Dynasty Nerds film room. You can use promo code COOP for 15% off. And I just think it's great resource. One of the best resources out there for Dynasty players. And definitely, I mean, I paid for it myself before I started working for them and got the employee kind of free membership. But I thought it was worth my dime. I think it's worth yours. So 15% off. Use promo code COOP. Moving right along, let's get to the wide receiver position. And Rupert, who did you have as a wide receiver to keep your eye on for Devy coming into this year?
I'm playing the homer card here, and shamelessly, I'll say, but I'm going with Kevin Concepcion from NC State. Came in as true freshman and just lit it up. 839 yards and 10 touchdowns. And what really just caught my eye is just how good he was. He doesn't look like a true freshman out there. He's so quick, incredible yards after catch. Really kind of reminds me of DJ Moore a bit. And he doesn't lose any speed when he cuts, and he just eliminates angles out there. So it's a guy I'm really interested to see progress moving forward. You know, can he play on the outside more, or is he going to rely on more gadget stuff in the slot? Either way, I think he's going to have a role at the NFL level. It just depends on if he can play X like DJ Moore is now, or if he's going to have to be more of a slot guy like a Christian Kirk. He's 5'11", not the biggest guy, 187. So I'm curious if he's going to end up putting on more weight in college and bulk up a little bit, which he totally can do because, again, true freshman. So really interested to see how this year comes, how he looks, and how he progresses throughout the year.
Yeah. I mean, you hit on it. The size is probably the biggest concern at 5'11", 187, which is not tiny. I mean, there's NFL players that are successful at that size. But like you mentioned, that's not what an X receiver usually profiles like. It does profile as more of a Z / flanker. You mentioned the 839 receiving yards. He also took 41 carries, which is a lot of carries for a wide receiver, for 320 yards. So he had over 1,000 total yards as a true freshman. I believe he won ACC Offensive Rookie of the Year.
He did.
And yeah, 71 receptions. That's a lot of receptions. He came in as the go-to guy. He was racking up targets. He was kind of a PPR monster. And so I think that's, when you see a guy as a true freshman coming in, he's only a 3-star recruit. Nobody really expected this out of him. When he comes in day one, becomes the go-to guy on his team. I believe targets are earned. I know you do too. And he's separating, he's earning those targets, which is really something. I mean, obviously you and I can speak to this better than other people can because we've followed NC State for years. We haven't had a go-to wide receiver like that in a long time. I think maybe Jacoby Myers was the
Yeah,
last
but
one you
yeah,
could really say that about. And
yep.
he's obviously, even though he didn't get the good draft capital, he's gone on to have a good NFL career. But yeah, he's an exciting young player and definitely somebody that I've drafted a bunch of shares of in Devy and excited to see how he looks this year. So my wide receiver, I kind of cheated. I didn't just pick one, but I said the Ohio State wide receiver room. I'm excited to keep an eye on just how all that shakes out, right? Because you have Abuka coming back, who was not expected to come back to school, but he did. And so obviously he played a lot of last year hurt, but he also has always kind of been in that slot gadgety kind of role. He's never been like the go-to player on the team because there's been guys in front of him that have just been better players. So now you would expect, like, okay, he comes in as the tenured veteran, the only proven guy in that wide receiver room. Is he going to be the lead guy? Or is he just going to continue in that slot gadget kind of role and be the guy he's always been? And, are some of these younger players going to come in and play on the outside? So that is something that I'm interested to see. Carnell Tate was a 5-star last year that I was really excited about, showed some flashes as a true freshman. And, he looks projected to probably start on the outside. So I'm excited to see what he looks like in more of a full-time role. And not to bury the lead here, Jeremiah Smith, man, nobody can stop talking about this kid for good reason. I mean, he is absolutely lighting it up in spring ball. That seems like highlights are coming out every other day of him just looking like a man amongst boys out there. And so I think everyone expects him to come in and take the college football world by storm as a true freshman. So it'll be interesting to see, in real game action, is he actually doing that? Does he actually come in and take over? So Thomas Green says, any worries about the quarterback situation at Ohio State for those wide receivers? He said TOSU, like the Ohio State, but I can't bring myself to say it. Yeah, I mean, that's true. They don't have CJ Stroud walking back into the building. I do think it'll be better than last year. I mean, last year with Kyle McCord was just brutal. And so I'm blanking on the guy's name. Walker Howard, is that his name? Or Will Howard? One of the Howards. I get them mixed up. Transferring in from Kansas State. He had a pretty good season last year. I think he's a better player than Kyle McCord is. So, yeah, I think we've got a reasonably okay situation. I'll put it that way. Hopefully. So, anyway, crowded room. And then you got Brandon Ennis, too, who was a true freshman last year, 5-star recruit. Everybody was excited about, but he didn't get on the field. He was a year 1-0. And so it's like, he seems kind of buried right now because it seems to me he's clearly behind the 3 guys I already mentioned in Tate, Abuka, and Smith. So, he's a Devy asset that a lot of people are probably holding and hoping for the best for. But he might not even be on the field. So just going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. There's a lot of Devy potential in that room, but nothing seems like for sure at this point. So well, let's get to the last position and often most overlooked position for Devy. And I think for good reason, because, it's so hard to predict Devy tight ends, like which ones are going to end up getting draft capital, which ones are going to be good pros. Even a guy like Michael Mayer, who seemed like as sure of a thing as you can get in college with his production for years. And he comes in and we start getting into the film. We're like, man, he's slow. And, he didn't do much as a rookie. And now he's been buried by Brock Bowers, who we hope is as good as we thought he was going to be. And, it's a very hard position to project. And I often find myself not investing in it from a Devy standpoint for that reason, because it just feels like you're very prone to wasting picks. I mean, I've taken guys in the past like a Michael Trigg was, you probably don't even know who that is, Rupert, but man, he was this uber athletic guy that was going nuts in spring camp, and everybody was like, "Oh man, Michael Trigg, he's going to be a beast." And I mean, he's a nothing burger. It's just a wasted spot on my roster at this point. So uh, let's try to project this really hard to project position. Is there anybody from the Devy landscape at the tight end position that you are keeping your eye on coming into this year?
Yeah. So as you said, it's really hard to predict. So what am I going to do? I'm going to, as our good friend Joe O'Leary says, you can rely on death, taxes, and Ohio tight ends. So I'm
Iowa.
going to that Ohio pipeline or Iowa. I don't know.
Iowa.
I saw Ohio on the screen too many times there. Thanks, Thomas. Yeah, so I'm going Luke Lacey. He has NFL family pedigree, basketball background, really athletic, phenomenal size, 6'6", 253 pounds. Just has the making of all the tools, and then has that coaching there at Iowa. So he's the guy I'm looking for. He was injured last year, wasn't able to really produce that much, had surgery. So be interesting to see how he comes back. Is he going to be as athletic as he was, or is there going to be any lingering concerns? He had a pretty severe leg injury and had to have ankle surgery. So we'll see how he comes back this year. But that's definitely going to be a guy that I think to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the Devy landscape at tight end is about as barren as I've ever seen it. Like, everybody feels like a dart throw. I don't know that you would see any of these guys go before like round 4 at the earliest of a Devy startup. But if you had a gun to my head and I had to choose a tight end 1 at this point, I think Luke might be the guy. Lachey. I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but yeah, I think that's a good call out. Another guy that I think is worth keeping an eye on is Oronde Gadsden from Syracuse. Now, the concern with him, he's listed at 6'5", but only 223 pounds. That is nowhere near heavy enough to play tight end at the NFL level. And if he's listed at that in college, it's like, man, what is his actual weight? So is he a tight end or is he a wide receiver? He's kind of played a hybrid of that at Syracuse, but he's listed at tight end for them pretty much anywhere that you look. And he had a monster sophomore season, nearly 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns in the ACC. Missed all of his junior year hurt, very similar to Luke Lachey, who we were just talking about. If he had come in and built on that sophomore season with an even bigger junior season, I mean, he could be a big name with a lot of buzz right now. He just didn't get the chance to do that. And he popped, whenever I was watching Sean Tucker a couple years ago. That's basically the only reason I've ever had to watch Syracuse play football. But anytime I turn on the Sean Tucker tape, man, who is this Gadsden guy? He's definitely got some ball skills, some athleticism, movement skills for a tight end. So, if he can put on weight and if he actually ends up playing tight end, I think he could be an intriguing name to keep an eye on. So that covers us, man. 2 players at least that we would keep our eye on at each position for Devy. Hopefully you guys that maybe have been listening to the show and you love Devy and you're like, man, you guys quit talking about Devy for months. Hopefully, we threw you a bone here and you're feeling excited about it. But I know some of you guys that have been in the Discord, you're kind of just getting into Devy and just trying to learn about it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this show. But as we sign off here, Rupert, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, follow me at Matthew Rupert FF on Twitter.
Yeah, man. Same here. You can find me on Twitter at CouchScoutsFF or on YouTube at CouchScouts. So if you're listening on Apple, we do have a YouTube channel, and you can watch us live when we're recording these things on Tuesday nights. We try to post up some other film breakdowns and things like that. If you're listening on Apple, leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, sub, all that good stuff. It helps other people find the channel, helps us grow. And so we really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
See you next week.